The weight of the black card seemed impossible as Natalie Parker held it in her trembling hand. The sleek, matte black rectangle with its platinum embossing caught the fluorescent office lights, almost mocking her with possibilities she'd never dared imagine. She was one of 4 women selected for what CEO Jackson Hayes called a little social experiment. His exact words still rang in her ears. "You have 24 hours. Spend as much or as little as you want. No limits, no questions asked. Just show me who you really are." Natalie tucked a strand of her auburn hair behind her ear, glancing at the other 3 women who had also received identical cards. There was Victoria Daniels, the ambitious marketing director with her perfectly tailored suits and string of advanced degrees. Madison Clark, the charming PR specialist who navigated social situations with enviable ease. Hannah Danielle Wilson, the brilliant young software engineer whose technical innovations had saved the company millions. And then there was Natalie herself, the single mother working as an executive assistant, the woman who scheduled Hayes's meetings and organized his life while struggling to maintain her own. "Remember," Hayes said, leaning against his mahogany desk in his corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Chicago, "this isn't about the company. This is personal." His steel blue eyes moved deliberately from one woman to the next, finally settling on Natalie. "Sometimes what we choose reveals more than any interview or performance review ever could." Hayes wasn't what anyone would call a conventional CEO. At 39, he had built Horizon Innovations from a small tech startup to a multi-billion-dollar empire in just 8 years. Known for his unconventional management style and eerily accurate judge of character, Hayes remained an enigma to most. Rumors about his private life circulated constantly, that he lived like a monk despite his wealth, that he'd survived a near-death experience that changed his worldview, that he gave away half his income anonymously. No one knew which, if any, were true. "Why us?" Madison asked, breaking the tense silence. Her confidence never wavered, even under Hayes's intense gaze. "An excellent question," he replied with a slight smile that never quite reached his eyes. "Let's just say I'm at a crossroads, both professionally and personally. The 4 of you represent something I need to understand better." That had been 2 hours ago. Now Natalie sat in her modest Honda Civic in the company parking garage, staring at the black card as if it might suddenly speak and tell her what to do. The others had already left. Victoria announcing her plans to visit the designer boutiques on Michigan Avenue, Madison mentioning something about reservations at Alinea, the 3 Michelin-star restaurant. Danielle had simply smiled enigmatically before heading toward the Tesla charging station. Natalie's phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Winters, her babysitter. "Joey's fever is up to 101. Should I give him more medicine?" Her 6-year-old son had been fighting a cold all week, another worry on her already overflowing plate. Between Joey's mounting medical bills, the rent increase notice that had arrived yesterday, and the transmission warning light that had appeared on her dashboard this morning, Natalie felt the universe was testing her limits even before Hayes had added his cryptic challenge. She started her car, her mind racing through possibilities. The black card in her hand represented more money than she would see in years of careful saving. She could pay off her student loans, put a down payment on a house, create a college fund for Joey. Practical, responsible choices that reflected who she was. Or was that really what Hayes wanted to see? Was this some bizarre test of loyalty or ethics? Would using the card for personal gain cost her the job she desperately needed? The digital clock on her dashboard reminded her that Joey would need to be picked up from the babysitter soon. Whatever this game was, she didn't have the luxury of time to decipher Hayes's motives. She needed to act, to make choices based on her reality, not his enigmatic challenge. 30 minutes later, Natalie pulled into the parking lot of Mercy Medical Center, the black card tucked securely in her wallet. Joey's pediatrician had been recommending a specialist consultation for months, concerned about his recurring respiratory infections and possible underlying conditions. Insurance would cover only a fraction of the cost, forcing her to postpone the appointment repeatedly. Not today. Today she would use the card for what mattered most, her son's health. As she approached the receptionist's desk in the pediatric specialty center, doubt crept in. What if the card was declined? What if this was all just an elaborate test of ethics? and using the card would prove she was willing to take advantage. What if Ms. Parker? A voice interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Dr. Reynolds, a pediatric pulmonologist whose waiting list stretched for months, stood before her with a warm smile. I understand you've requested an urgent consultation for Joey. We had a cancellation, so I can see him this afternoon if you're available. 3 hours later, Natalie emerged from the medical center with Joey holding her hand and a folder containing diagnostic results, a treatment plan, and receipts for medications. The black card had worked without hesitation, covering the consultation, tests, and a year's worth of specialized medications that would finally address Joey's undiagnosed asthmatic condition. Can we get ice cream, Mom? Joey asked, his energy already improved after his first proper treatment. Not today, buddy. We have a few more important stops to make, she replied, helping him into his booster seat. By dusk, Natalie had used Hayes's black card 3 more times, at an auto repair shop where her car's transmission received the attention it had desperately needed, at a grocery store where she filled her cart with healthy foods rather than the budget options she usually selected, and at a children's clothing store where she purchased Joey properly fitting winter clothes for the upcoming Chicago winter. As night fell, she sat at her small kitchen table, Joey asleep in his bedroom, and stared at the receipts spread before her. The total was substantial, but hardly extravagant compared to what the others might be spending. She had 1 day left, and a growing suspicion that whatever game Hayes was playing, it wasn't as simple as it appeared. Her phone buzzed with an incoming email. Jackson Hayes, subject line, tomorrow. The message was brief, dinner. My house, 8 p.m., all 4 of you. Bring whatever you've purchased. Address attached. Natalie leaned back in her chair, a sense of unease settling over her. Tomorrow she would come face to face with whatever Hayes was really testing, and discover whether she had passed or failed. What she couldn't possibly know was that Hayes had been watching her all day, and that her choices had already set in motion events that would change both their lives forever. The next morning, Natalie woke before her alarm, her mind already racing with thoughts of the evening ahead. Joey was breathing easier than he had in months, the new medications clearly making a difference. As she prepared his breakfast, her phone pinged with notifications, the other women sharing their purchases in a group chat Hayes had apparently created. Victoria had posted photos from Neiman Marcus and Tiffany & Co., her haul including a designer handbag, diamond earrings, and what appeared to be an original artwork. Investing in quality, she'd captioned it with a winking emoji. Madison shared pictures from her evening at Alinea, followed by VIP access to a concert and a night at the Peninsula Hotel's presidential suite. Life experiences material things, she wrote. Danielle had been more reserved, simply stating she'd made strategic acquisitions without elaborating. Natalie's thumb hovered over the screen. Should she share her practical choices? Would they seem pathetically small compared to the others' extravagance? She decided against posting, slipping her phone back into her pocket as Joey bounded into the kitchen. I can breathe through my nose, Mom, he announced proudly, as if he'd accomplished something extraordinary. In a way he had. After dropping Joey at school, Natalie headed to work, the black card still in her wallet with several $1,000s of its limit intact. She had one more planned purchase before returning it to Hayes, something she'd thought about all night. The office was buzzing with speculation about Hayes' experiment. Rumors spread that he was choosing a successor, seeking a wife or conducting research for a book. Natalie kept her head down, focusing on her work while avoiding direct questions about her own participation. At lunch, she slipped out to a small bookstore a few blocks from the office. The elderly owner, Mr. Bennett, greeted her warmly. I have what you called about. Miss Parker, just arrived this morning. He placed a weathered leather-bound volume on the counter. Financial Wisdom, Building Generational Wealth by Edward Hayes, Jackson's late father. The book had been out of print for years, with used copies fetching premium prices online. And the other items? She asked. Yes. Mr. Bennett nodded, producing a stack of books on childhood asthma management, single-parent financial planning, and educational investing. Quite the diverse selection. Is this for a special project? Something like that, Natalie replied, handing over the black card for the final time. Back at the office, she wrapped the elder Hayes book carefully, adding a handwritten note before tucking it into her bag. Whatever game Hayes was playing, she was determined to show him exactly who she was. Not just a struggling single mother, but a woman with perception, dignity, and purpose. The afternoon crawled by with agonizing slowness. At 5, Natalie left to pick up Joey, drop him at her sister's for an overnight stay, and prepare for the evening ahead. She chose a simple navy dress, professional rather than seductive, dignified rather than desperate. Her one concession to vanity was a pair of pearl earrings that had belonged to her grandmother, more sentimental than valuable. Hayes's address led her to a surprisingly modest brownstone in Lincoln Park. She had expected an ostentatious mansion or a sleek penthouse, not this warm historic home with window boxes full of herbs and a porch light that cast a welcoming glow. Victoria's Mercedes and Madison's Lexus were already parked outside. As Natalie approached the door, Danielle pulled up in her Tesla. "Ready for the final judgment?" Danielle asked with a nervous smile, clutching what appeared to be a computer case. "As ready as I'll ever be," Natalie replied, noticing that Danielle wasn't carrying shopping bags either. Victoria answered the door before they could knock, champagne flute in hand. "Come in, ladies. The show's about to begin." Her confidence seemed slightly forced, a thin veneer covering uncertainty. Hayes's home was like the man himself, unexpected. Instead of cold minimalism or showy luxury, the interior was warm, filled with books, artwork that appeared personal rather than expensive, and photographs of landscapes rather than people. No evidence of family, partners, or even friends. Madison was already settled on a leather sofa, her purchases displayed on the coffee table. A collection of experiences rather than objects, represented by tickets, restaurant menus, and hotel keycards artfully arranged. "Ah, the final contestants arrive," Hayes said, emerging from what appeared to be a kitchen, wiping his hands on an apron. "I hope everyone likes Italian. Dinner's almost ready." The next hour unfolded like a strange dream. Hayes served a homemade meal that would put many restaurants to shame. Engage them in conversation about everything, except the experiment, and watch them with those penetrating blue eyes that seemed to catalog every reaction, every word choice, every micro-expression. Finally, as he served tiramisu for dessert, he leaned back in his chair. "I suppose it's time to discuss why you're all here." "About time," Victoria said, the edge in her voice betraying her nerves. "I've been waiting to understand the point of this exercise." Hayes smiled enigmatically. "The point, Miss Daniels, was to learn something about character, about what drives people when constraints are removed." He gestured toward the living room. "Shall we move somewhere more comfortable for the reveal?" As they settled in the living room, Hayes remained standing, studying each woman in turn. "Tomorrow I'm announcing a major reorganization of Horizon's leadership structure. One of you will play a significant role in that future." His gaze lingered on Natalie briefly before continuing. "But first, show me what my card purchased." One by one, they revealed their choices. Victoria's luxury items, carefully selected for investment potential and status signaling. Madison's experiences, chosen to create connections and memorable stories. Danielle's surprising selection, cutting-edge educational technology donated to underserved schools in the company's name. When Natalie's turn came, she swallowed hard against the sudden tightness in her throat. "I used your card to take care of essentials," she said quietly, placing her receipts on the table. "Medical care for my son, car repairs, winter necessities." She paused, then reached into her bag for the wrapped book. "And this. For you." Hayes's expression revealed nothing as he accepted the package. Whatever judgment was coming, Natalie realized she was proud of her choices. They reflected exactly who she was, a mother first, a provider, a planner, someone who saw beyond herself, what she couldn't. So was that her authenticity had just changed the trajectory of Jackson Hayes's carefully constructed experiment in ways none of them could predict. Jackson Hayes unwrapped the package with careful precision, his methodical movements betraying nothing of his thoughts. The room fell silent, tension building as the leather-bound volume emerged from its wrapping. His fingers froze momentarily when he saw the title, a flicker of something surprise, perhaps pain, crossing his face before his composed expression returned. "My father's book," he said quietly, opening to the inscription page where Natalie had written a simple note. "The greatest wealth is not measured in dollars. Thank you for the opportunity to invest in what truly matters. He closed the book carefully, setting it aside before looking directly at Natalie. Of all the things you could have purchased for yourself, you chose to give me something instead. Victoria cleared her throat. I think we're all curious about the point of this exercise, Jackson. Some transparency would be appreciated. Hayes nodded, moving to stand by the fireplace. The dancing flames cast shadows across his face, making him appear somehow both more vulnerable and more formidable. 6 months ago, I received some news that changed my perspective on everything: business, legacy, purpose. He paused, choosing his words carefully. I realized that the metrics I've been using to measure success, both personal and professional, were fundamentally flawed. Danielle leaned forward. What kind of news changes a billionaire's perspective that dramatically? The kind that makes you question what you're building and who you're building it for, he replied cryptically. I needed to understand something about trust, judgment, and character. Hence this experiment. Madison set down her champagne glass. So we were lab rats? That's rather dehumanizing, isn't it? On the contrary, Hayes countered. I gave each of you unprecedented freedom. No constraints, no guidelines. Just the opportunity to reveal your authentic priorities. He turned to Victoria. You chose status symbols and investments, logical for someone who values security and recognition. His gaze shifted to Madison. You invested in experiences and connections, building social capital in ways that align with your strengths. Looking at Danielle, he continued, you leverage the opportunity for social impact, creating public good while enhancing the company's reputation. Finally, his eyes rested on Natalie. The intensity of his gaze made her breath catch. And you, Ms. Parker, focused on foundational needs, health, safety, a necessity, before thinking of giving something back. I'm still not clear on why this matters to Horizon's reorganization, Victoria interjected, her perfectly manicured nails tapping impatiently against her glass. Because Horizon is changing direction, Hayes answered. We're establishing a non-profit foundation with an initial endowment of $50 million. The foundation will focus on accessible healthcare, education, and community development. He paused. I need someone to lead it who understands value beyond the balance sheet. The revelation landed like a stone in still water, ripples of implications spreading outward. Victoria's expression soured slightly. Madison looked intrigued but uncertain. Danielle nodded thoughtfully. Natalie felt her heart beating faster, unsure what this meant for her specifically. The four of you represent different approaches to leadership, Hayes continued. I needed to see how those approaches would manifest when constraints were removed, Natalie found her voice. So this was a job interview, disguised as a psychological experiment. Hayes smiled, the first genuine smile of the evening. In a sense, though perhaps more revealing than any traditional interview could be. He moved to refill their glasses. But there's more to discuss. Dinner was just the beginning of our evening, as Hayes led them through his home to a beautifully appointed study. Natalie noticed photographs she'd missed earlier, Hayes as a child with a stern-looking man who must be his father, the author of the book she'd given him. In another, a much younger Hayes stood beside an elderly woman outside what appeared to be a small bakery. These glimpses into his personal history seemed oddly incongruous with his public persona. The study featured floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk, and a wall of screens currently displaying data about Horizon's global operations. Hayes gestured toward comfortable leather chairs arranged in a semicircle. The foundation is only part of the reorganization, he explained, activating the screens with a remote. Horizon is pivoting toward more socially responsible technologies. We're divesting from certain defense contracts and increasing investment in healthcare innovation, sustainable energy, and educational technology. Victoria straightened. That's a significant departure from our current profit centers. The board will have concerns. The board has already approved the strategy, Hayes replied. What they don't yet know is who will lead these initiatives. He looked at each woman in turn. That's where tonight's demonstration of character becomes relevant. Madison leaned forward. So one of us gets the foundation and the others, what, go back to our regular jobs? Not exactly, Hayes said. Each of you will be offered a new role aligned with your demonstrated values and skills. He touched the remote again, bringing up 4 organizational charts. Victoria, Your financial acumen and investment instincts would make you an ideal CFO for our new sustainable technologies division. Victoria's expression shifted from disappointment to calculated interest as she processed the potential power and compensation such a position would entail. Madison, your understanding of relationship building and experiential value aligns perfectly with our new customer engagement division, focusing on creating meaningful connections between our technologies and the communities they serve. Madison nodded, clearly seeing the possibilities. Danielle, your technical expertise combined with your evident social conscience makes you the natural choice to lead our educational technology initiative, expanding access to cutting-edge learning tools for underserved populations. Danielle's normally reserved expression brightened considerably. Finally, Hayes turned to Natalie. And Ms. Parker, your demonstrated priorities. The door to the study burst open, interrupting whatever Hayes had been about to say. A young man in a rumpled suit entered, his expression urgent. Mr. Hayes, I apologize for the interruption, but there's a situation requiring immediate attention. Hayes frowned. Bradley, I left explicit instructions. It's about Project Phoenix, sir. There's been a security breach. The change in Hayes was immediate and dramatic. His casual demeanor vanished, replaced by the sharp-eyed CEO known for ruthless efficiency. Ladies, please excuse me. Help yourselves to drinks. This shouldn't take long. He followed Bradley from the room, closing the door firmly behind him. The moment the door shut, Victoria was on her feet. Well, this is unexpected. Any bets on what Project Phoenix might be? Probably their quantum computing initiative, Danielle offered. They've been keeping it under wraps, but industry rumors suggest it's revolutionary. Madison sipped her drink thoughtfully. More interesting is why Hayes would test potential executives with his personal black card rather than using standard assessment methods, because standard methods don't reveal character. Under unusual circumstances, Natalie said quietly, her eyes drawn to a photograph on Hayes's desk. She moved closer, studying it with growing confusion. The photo showed Hayes with a woman and a young boy, all three smiling. The backdrop a hospital room decorated with birthday balloons. Something about the woman seemed hauntingly familiar. What are you looking at? Madison asked, joining her. Natalie picked up the frame. I think I know this woman, Victoria scoffed. Unlikely. Hayes is notoriously private about his personal life. The tabloids have never even confirmed a serious relationship. No, I've definitely seen her before, Natalie insisted, studying the photograph more closely. The woman had warm brown eyes and a gentle smile, her arm protectively around the boy who appeared to be about Joey's age. She looks like someone who used to work in accounting at Horizon. Catherine something. Catherine Bell, Danielle confirmed, joining them. She was a financial analyst who left about 2 years ago. Brilliant mathematician. We collaborated on a predictive algorithm before she left suddenly. No explanation given. Natalie felt a chill run through her. And the boy? No idea, Madison said. Hayes doesn't have children, at least none publicly acknowledged. The door reopened before they could speculate further, and Hayes returned looking troubled. I apologize for the interruption. A sensitive matter that requires attention, but not immediately. His eyes went to the photograph in Natalie's hands, and something in his expression shifted. You recognize her, he said. It wasn't a question. Natalie nodded. Catherine Bell, she worked at Horizon. Yes, Hayes confirmed, taking the photograph and looking at it with an expression of profound sadness. Catherine was more than an employee. She was my sister, Natalie asked, registering his use of past tense. Hayes set the photograph down carefully. Catherine died 18 months ago. Acute myeloid leukemia. Despite all my resources, all my connections, his voice trailed off. Her son, my nephew Tyler, now lives with me. The revelation landed with seismic impact. Hayes's cryptic comments about changed perspectives suddenly made sense. His interest in healthcare initiatives, in values and character, all contextualized by personal loss. That's why you're reorganizing Horizon, Danielle said softly. It's Catherine's legacy. Partly, Hayes acknowledged, but it's also about what her illness revealed to me about our healthcare system, about access and privilege, about what truly matters when time becomes the most precious commodity. He looked directly at Natalie. Which brings me back to our discussion of your potential role. Ms. Parker, Your choices with the black card revealed an understanding of priorities that aligns precisely with what the Foundation needs. Victoria interrupted smoothly. While I sympathize with your personal situation, Jackson, making major business decisions based on emotional responses to family tragedy isn't sound corporate governance. Hayes's expression cooled. An interesting perspective, Victoria. Perhaps revealing more about your character than your purchases did. He turned back to Natalie. Catherine's foundation needs a director who understands both struggle and hope. Someone who makes wise choices even when presented with unlimited options. The implication hung in the air between them, an offer not yet formally extended but clearly intended. Before Natalie could respond, her phone buzzed urgently in her purse. One glance at the screen sent ice through her veins. Her sister calling repeatedly with a text visible. Emergency. Joey, an ambulance. Call now. I have to go, Natalie said, her voice tight with panic as she grabbed her purse. My son, he's in an ambulance. Hayes was instantly alert. What happened? I don't know yet, she replied, fumbling with her phone, hands shaking too badly to unlock it. I need to call my sister. I'll drive you, Hayes said decisively, already reaching for his keys. You're in no condition. He turned to the others. Ladies, we'll need to continue this discussion another time. Bradley will see you out. Victoria stepped forward. Jackson, surely your assistant can handle... This meeting is adjourned. Hayes cut her off with a finality that brooked no argument. Bradley, please show everyone out and reschedule for tomorrow afternoon. The young assistant appeared in the doorway, looking startled but professional. Of course, sir. Ladies, if you'll follow me. Natalie barely registered the others' reactions as Hayes guided her firmly toward the garage. Her mind was consumed with terrifying possibilities. Joey had been breathing better that morning. What could have happened? The new medication? Had there been some terrible reaction? Her sister's text provided no details, just the heart-stopping word ambulance. Hayes's vehicle wasn't the sleek sports car or luxury sedan she might have expected, but a practical high-end SUV. He opened the passenger door for her, then slid into the driver's seat and engaged the engine. Which hospital? Mercy Children's, Natalie managed, finally connecting with her sister on the phone. Jen, what happened? Is he... Her sister's voice came through tight with worry but controlled. He was fine, then suddenly couldn't breathe. Like nothing I've ever seen before. The paramedics are with him now. They're saying something about an allergic reaction. To what? The new medication? Cold fear gripped Natalie's heart. I don't think so. We had dinner. Pasta with a new sauce I bought. They're asking if he has any food allergies. Not that we know of, Natalie said, her mind racing. I'm on my way. 20 minutes, maybe less. Hayes drove with focused intensity, navigating evening traffic with skill. When he needed to, he used a discreet siren that materialized from nowhere, clearing their path through congested intersections. At Natalie's questioning glance, he offered a brief explanation. Board member of the hospital. Emergency privileges. They reached Mercy Children's in 15 minutes. Hayes pulled directly up to the emergency entrance, where a security guard started to object, then recognized him and stepped back with a nod of respect. Natalie was out of the car before it fully stopped, rushing through the automatic doors with Hayes close behind. The emergency department was controlled chaos. Natalie spotted her sister immediately, standing anxiously near a curtained area, where medical personnel moved quickly around a small figure on a bed. Joey. Natalie pushed forward, stopped only by a nurse who stepped into her path. Are you his mother? He's stabilizing, but we need information. The nurse guided her firmly toward the treatment area, while handing her forms to complete. Has he ever had an allergic reaction before? Any known allergies in the family? No, nothing, Natalie said, straining to see her son. Joey looked frighteningly small on the hospital bed, an oxygen mask covering his face, monitors beeping steadily around him. A doctor was examining his skin, where angry red hives were visible even from a distance. We've administered epinephrine and antihistamines, the nurse explained. His airways were constricting, but we caught it quickly. The doctor will want to discuss follow-up testing once he's stable. Follow-up testing? Natalie repeated numbly, medical forms clutched in her hand. Comprehensive allergy testing. With a reaction this severe, we need to identify the trigger to prevent recurrence. The reality of what this meant crashed over Natalie. More specialists, more tests, more medical bills. The temporary relief provided by Hayes's black card suddenly seemed cruelly brief. "Insurance information?" the nurse prompted gently. Natalie swallowed hard. "Yes, I have it here." She dug through her purse for her insurance card, knowing the high-deductible plan would cover only a fraction of tonight's emergency. As she handed over the card, she became aware of Hayes standing nearby, speaking quietly but authoritatively to someone in hospital administration. She caught fragments: priority care, specialist consultation, and all expenses. Before she could process what was happening, the charge nurse approached with a changed demeanor. "Ms. Parker, Dr. Harrison will be overseeing your son's care personally. He's our chief of pediatric immunology. And please don't worry about the financial aspects. Everything has been arranged." Natalie looked from the nurse to Hayes, comprehension dawning. "You didn't have to—" "Yes, I did," he said simply. "May I?" He gestured toward Joey's room. For the next several hours, Natalie remained at Joey's bedside as his condition stabilized. The hives gradually faded, his breathing improved, and by midnight he was sleeping peacefully. The crisis passed. Throughout it all, Hayes remained present, not intruding, but ensuring that every possible resource was available, every question answered, every comfort provided. When Joey finally slept soundly, monitors showing strong, stable vitals, Natalie stepped into the hallway where Hayes waited, his tie loosened. "Jacket discarded hours ago." "Thank you," she said simply. "I don't know how to—" "Don't," he interrupted gently. "This is what resources are for." Something in his tone made her look more closely at him. "You've been through this before." Hayes nodded, his gaze distant. "With Tyler. After Catherine died, he developed severe anxiety that manifested physically, panic attacks that mimicked asthma attacks. The first time it happened," he trailed off, clearly remembering his own night of terror. "Is that why you created this experiment? To find someone who understands what it's like?" Natalie asked. Hayes considered her question thoughtfully. "Partly," he acknowledged, "but it's more than that. Catherine's illness changed everything. She was brilliant, should have been running Horizon instead of me. She was the compassionate one, the visionary. I was just good at execution and strategy." He paused. "When she got sick, I witnessed firsthand how broken our systems are. Even with unlimited resources, the best specialists, every advantage, she still suffered needlessly through bureaucracy, miscommunications, fragmented care. So the foundation is her legacy," Natalie said. "It's what she wanted. Her last project was designing it, the structure, the mission, the values." He smiled sadly. She called it her life's purpose, distilled when time became precious. A doctor approached before they could continue, clipboard in hand. "Ms. Parker, good news. Joey's tests show he's stabilized completely. We've identified the likely allergen, a specific type of tree nut in the pasta sauce. We'll need comprehensive follow-up testing, but we have a clear direction now." Relief washed over Natalie. "When can I take him home?" "We'd like to observe him until morning, but barring any complications, you should be able to leave by 9 or 10 tomorrow." The doctor hesitated. "Normally we'd schedule the follow-up testing for next week, but Dr. Harrison has arranged for the full panel tomorrow afternoon. If that works for you." "That's perfect," Natalie said, marveling at how quickly things could change. By yesterday, she'd been struggling to get basic medical care for Joey. Today, the chief of immunology was personally arranging his treatment plan. As the doctor left, Hayes checked his watch. "It's late. You should rest. There's a comfortable family suite connected to Joey's room." Natalie shook her head. "I couldn't possibly sleep." "Then perhaps we should continue our conversation from earlier," Hayes suggested. "The foundation position, I'd like you to consider it." "Me? But I'm just an executive assistant. I don't have the qualifications or experience for something like that." Hayes smiled. Catherine started in the mailroom. "Formal qualifications matter far less to me than demonstrated judgment and values." He paused. "The foundation needs someone who understands both sides, the practical realities of limited resources and the perspective to use unlimited resources wisely. Like your black card experiment," Natalie said, understanding dawning. "Exactly. Victoria saw it as a chance to acquire status symbols. Madison invested in experiences that would benefit her socially. Danielle made admirable charitable choices, but with a corporate strategy mindset." He looked directly at Natalie. You were the only one who used resources to address fundamental needs first, then considered giving something back, something personally meaningful rather than generically charitable. The implications were overwhelming. This would be a complete change from my current role. Yes, Hayes acknowledged, with corresponding changes in compensation, authority and responsibility. The Foundation has a $50 million initial endowment. We expect to increase that to $200 million within 3 years. Natalie felt lightheaded at the figures. I would need to think about it. Of course, Hayes agreed. Take all the time you need. A nurse appeared in the doorway. Ms. Parker? Joey's asking for you. Natalie rushed back to her son's room, finding him awake and alert, the oxygen mask replaced with a nasal cannula. Hey, buddy, she said softly, smoothing his hair back from his forehead. Mom, he said weakly, I'm sorry I ruined your important dinner. You didn't ruin anything, she assured him, heartbreaking at his concern for her, even in his condition. Is your boss mad? The one who gave you the special card? No, sweetie. Her's not mad at all. She glanced toward the door where Hayes stood watching them, his expression unreadable. He's nice, Joey said, his eyelids growing heavy again. He talked to me while you were filling out papers. He said we might be family someday. Natalie froze. What? He said his nephew Tyler needs friends and I might be a good one. Joey's voice was fading as sleep reclaimed him. He said Tyler's mom is in heaven too, like Dad. Natalie looked up sharply at Hayes, who had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. I should explain, he said quietly. Yes, you should, she agreed, confused by this new revelation. Hayes gestured toward the hallway. Once they were outside Joey's room, he took a deep breath. The black card experiment wasn't just about finding a foundation director. What else was it about? Natalie asked, a suspicion forming. Finding someone who might understand a rather unusual family situation. He ran a hand through his hair, suddenly looking less like a polished CEO and more like a man navigating unfamiliar emotional territory. Tyler needs more than just me. He needs a family environment, stability, normalcy, all things I'm not particularly qualified to provide. So you were what? Interviewing potential mother figures? Natalie felt a surge of indignation. That's incredibly presumptuous. Not exactly, Hayes said quickly. It was Catherine's idea, actually. Before she died, she made me promise to find someone who shared her values to help raise Tyler and to run her foundation. She knew I'd be terrible at identifying such a person through normal means. So she suggested you hand out unlimited credit cards and see what happened. Natalie asked incredulously. She suggested I create a situation of true freedom and observe the choices people made, Hayes corrected. The black card was my implementation of her concept. Before Natalie could respond, her phone buzzed with an incoming call, her sister, who had gone home hours ago to relieve the babysitter. Jen, is everything okay? Her sister's voice came through, strained and urgent. Nat, someone broke into your apartment. The police are here now. Everything's been ransacked. What do you mean, ransacked? Natalie gripped the phone tighter, panic rising in her chest. Was anything taken? It's hard to tell, Jen replied. The place is a mess. Your laptop is gone, and they went through all your personal papers. The police think it might be identity theft related. Hayes was already on his own phone, speaking in low, urgent tones. I need a security team at this address immediately. Coordinate with local police. Full assessment and protection detail. He ended the call and turned to Natalie. My head of security is handling it. Do you have somewhere safe to stay when Joey is released? We could go to my sister's, Natalie said, mind racing through limited options. I have a better solution, Hayes said. I own a guest house not far from my place. Secure, private, and comfortable. You and Joey can stay there until this is resolved. That's very generous, but this isn't generosity, Hayes interrupted, his expression grave. This is my responsibility. The break-in might be connected to my experiment. What? How? Hayes ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of agitation from the usually composed CEO. The timing is suspicious. 4 women suddenly given access to a billionaire's unlimited funds. That information would be valuable to certain people. You think someone's targeting all 4 of us? Natalie asked, the implications sinking in. I've already sent security to check on the others, Hayes confirmed. But you're the most vulnerable. A single mother with a child, living in an apartment without security systems. A doctor approached before Natalie could respond. Ms. Parker? Good news. Joey's latest tests show significant improvement. If this continues, we can discharge him in the morning as planned. Thank you, Natalie said, attempting a smile despite her churning thoughts. When the doctor left, Hayes stepped closer. I understand your reluctance to accept more help from me, but please consider that your son's safety might be at risk. Put that way, Natalie had little choice. All right, but just until I figure out what happened at my apartment. By morning, Joey was cleared for discharge with a comprehensive care plan, prescriptions, and scheduled follow-up appointments. Hayes had arranged everything, from a private nurse to demonstrate the use of Joey's new EpiPen to a detailed food allergy management protocol. As they prepared to leave, Hayes's phone rang. "Excuse me," he said, stepping away to take the call. When he returned, his expression was tight. "That was my security team. Your apartment wasn't the only one broken into. Madison's condo was also targeted last night. Was she hurt?" Natalie asked, alarmed. "No, she wasn't home. But like your place, her personal documents were searched thoroughly. Victoria and Danielle's homes had attempted break-ins, but their security systems deterred the intruders." "This can't be coincidence," Natalie said. "No," Hayes agreed grimly. "And it suggests this isn't random. Someone is specifically targeting the women involved in my experiment." The gravity of the situation settled over Natalie as Hayes escorted them to his SUV, now accompanied by a second vehicle containing security personnel. Joey, still tired from his ordeal, but excited by what he perceived as an adventure, settled into the back seat with a tablet Hayes had thoughtfully loaded with age-appropriate games. "I've rescheduled the meeting with the other candidates for this afternoon," Hayes explained as they drove. "Under the circumstances, I believe we need to accelerate decisions about the reorganization. Do you think that's wise?" "With everything happening?" Hayes nodded. "More necessary than ever. But first, let's get you and Joey settled." The guest house proved to be a charming cottage on the edge of Hayes's property, small but luxurious, with state-of-the-art security visible in the discreet cameras and robust locks. Inside, they found the refrigerator stocked with child-friendly foods carefully selected to avoid Joey's newly identified allergens, and a bedroom already prepared with superhero-themed bedding that delighted the boy. "Tyler's outgrown these," Hayes explained when Natalie raised an eyebrow at the perfect age-appropriateness of everything. "But he insisted we keep them for guests. This is the first time they've been used. Where is Tyler?" Natalie asked, realizing she hadn't seen the boy in person yet. "At his grandmother's, Catherine's mother-in-law. She takes him on weekends to give my housekeeper a break." Hayes checked his watch. "The meeting is in 2 hours. Will you be comfortable here? I've arranged for security to remain on site." Natalie nodded, grateful despite her discomfort at accepting so much help. "We'll be fine. Go do what you need to do." After Hayes left, Natalie helped Joey settle in for a nap, then explored the cottage. In the small office area, she found a secure laptop with a note. "In case you need to work remotely. Password Phoenix 2024. The reference to Project Phoenix, the mysterious initiative mentioned during last night's interrupted meeting, caught her attention. Curiosity overcame her hesitation. She logged in, finding a standard desktop with one unusual icon, a folder labeled Catherine's Legacy. Inside were documents outlining the foundation Hayes had mentioned, including a personal letter from Catherine to her brother. "Jackson, when you read this, I'll be gone. My time is short, but this foundation can extend what I couldn't finish. Find someone who sees value where others see cost, who builds where others exploit, who nurtures potential rather than harvesting it. The future of Horizon and of Tyler depends on it. Trust your experiment. The right person will reveal themselves not by what they take, but by what they give back." The letter continued with detailed plans for the foundation, focusing on accessible healthcare, educational support for underprivileged children, and community development initiatives, all causes that resonated deeply with Natalie's own values. A notification appeared on the screen, an incoming secure message from Hayes. "Meeting starting soon. Security team will escort you if you're able to join us. Important developments." Natalie checked on Joey, found him sleeping peacefully, and confirmed with the security team that one of them could monitor him while she attended the meeting. 20 minutes later, she was escorted into Hayes's corporate offices downtown, where Victoria, Madison, and Danielle were already assembled in the executive conference room. "Ah, Natalie. Thank you for coming," Hayes greeted her. "I was just briefing everyone on the security situation." Victoria looked tense. "This is outrageous. My private security firm detected 3 separate attempted breaches of my home systems last night. Same with my apartment," Madison added. "Though they were more successful than with Victoria's place." Danielle nodded grimly. "My intrusion detection system logged multiple attempts as well. Our cybersecurity team has been analyzing the pattern," Hayes explained, bringing up data on the large display. "These aren't random attacks. They're coordinated and sophisticated, targeting specific information about each of you, particularly financial details, personal history, and connections to Horizon." "But why?" Madison asked. "What would anyone gain from this?" Hayes touched a control, bringing up a news screen. "Because of this." The display showed a financial news headline. "Horizon Innovations announces major reorganization. New foundation with 50 Mounters endowment." "That information wasn't public," Victoria said sharply. "The reorganization hasn't even been finalized." "Exactly," Hayes replied. "Someone leaked it and is now trying to manipulate the situation." He turned to face them directly. "Which is why I've called you here. We need to accelerate our timeline. The board is meeting in 1 hour to approve the final restructuring plan and leadership appointments." Victoria straightened. "I assume you've reconsidered the foundation directorship in light of recent events. Managing such significant resources requires experience and connections that not everyone here possesses." Her gaze flickered briefly toward Natalie. "Actually," Hayes said, "recent events have only confirmed my original assessment." He turned to Natalie. "Unless you've changed your mind about considering the position." Before Natalie could respond, the door opened and Bradley entered with a tablet. "Sir, we've identified the source of the leak and the break-ins." Hayes took the tablet, his expression darkening as he reviewed the information. "Are you certain?" "The digital forensics are conclusive," Bradley confirmed. Hayes looked up, his gaze settling on Victoria. "Care to explain why your private security firm was instructed to gather information on the other participants in my experiment, Ms. Daniels?" The room fell silent. Victoria's composure slipped momentarily before she recovered. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Our team traced the data breach to an account registered to your personal assistant," Hayes continued relentlessly. "The same assistant who was instructed to hire private investigators to research the financial and personal backgrounds of everyone here." Victoria's expression hardened. "You can't prove any of that." "Actually, we can," Hayes replied, sliding the tablet toward her. "Your assistant was quite cooperative once we presented the evidence. Apparently, you were determined to ensure you received the most prestigious position in the reorganization, by any means necessary." "This is absurd," Victoria scoffed, though her confident demeanor had cracked. "Even if I did conduct some background research, which I'm not admitting, that's just due diligence. It has nothing to do with break-ins or data breaches. The private security firm you hired has some interesting side businesses," Hayes countered, "including corporate espionage and what they euphemistically call competitive intelligence gathering. When digital methods failed against our systems, they resorted to physical intrusion." Victoria stood abruptly. "I don't have to listen to these unfounded accusations." "If you'll excuse me." "Sit down, Victoria," Hayes said quietly, his tone leaving no room for argument. "The police will be here shortly to take your statement. You might want to contact your lawyer." As Victoria reluctantly resumed her seat, Hayes turned to the others. "I apologize for the distress this has caused all of you. Rest assured, Horizon will cover any damages and ensure your homes are secure before you return to them." "What happens now?" Danielle asked. "With the reorganization?" "It proceeds as planned," Hayes replied. "With one modification." He looked at Victoria. "Your position in the new structure is understandably no longer available. The rest remains as discussed." As security personnel arrived to escort Victoria from the building, Hayes turned to Natalie. "I understand if recent events have made you reconsider the foundation position. It's a significant change with considerable responsibility." Natalie thought of Joey, of the opportunities this role would provide for both of them, of the impact she could have on families facing challenges similar to her own. "I'm still interested," she said. "More than interested. I want to build Catherine's legacy. Hayes smiled, relief evident in his expression. The board meeting is in 45 minutes. Would you like to join us? Your formal appointment would be announced then. I can't leave Joey alone, Natalie began. Already handled, Hayes assured her. Tyler's grandmother has offered to watch him at the guest house. She's a retired pediatric nurse, so he'll be in excellent hands. An hour later, Natalie found herself in Horizon's imposing boardroom as Hayes presented the reorganization plan to the assembled directors. The atmosphere was electric with potential as he outlined the company's new direction. More socially responsible, more focused on lasting impact rather than quarterly profits alone. And to lead the Catherine Bell Foundation, Hayes concluded, I am pleased to present Natalie Parker, whose demonstrated judgment, compassion, and vision embody the values this initiative represents. The board's questions were probing but fair, and Natalie found herself drawing on years of observing corporate dynamics as an executive assistant. She knew the language, understood the concerns, and could translate between the worlds of business pragmatism and humanitarian idealism. By meeting's end, the reorganization was approved unanimously, including Natalie's appointment. As they left the boardroom, Hayes touched her elbow lightly. There's someone I'd like you to meet. In a comfortable waiting area nearby, a boy of about 7 sat reading, a kindly older woman beside him. He looked up as they approached, and Natalie recognized him immediately from the photograph. Hayes' nephew. Tyler, Hayes said. This is Miss Parker, the lady I told you about. The boy studied her with solemn eyes so like his mother's. Are you going to run Mum's foundation? Yes, Natalie answered simply. With your uncle's help. Tyler nodded, satisfied with her directness. Mum would like you. You don't talk to me like I'm stupid, Hayes laughed. High praise indeed. To Natalie, he added, Tyler has agreed to show Joey around the property tomorrow, if that's all right with you. I'm good with little kids, Tyler informed her seriously. And I know all about allergies. I have one to shellfish. Joey will appreciate that, Natalie said, warming to the boy's earnest manner. Later that evening, as Joey and Tyler bonded over a board game under the watchful eye of Tyler's grandmother, Hayes invited Natalie to join him on the guest house porch. The spring evening was mild, stars just beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Catherine would have approved of today's outcome, Hayes said, handing Natalie a glass of wine. She always believed the right people reveal themselves through actions, not words. Is that why you created the black card test? Natalie asked. To see actions rather than hear promises? Hayes nodded. Catherine designed the framework before she died. Said I was too easily impressed by credentials and too blind to character. He smiled ruefully. She wasn't wrong. What happens now? Natalie asked, watching through the window as the boys laughed over their game. With the foundation, with Joey's medical care, with, she gestured vaguely, encompassing the bizarre circumstances that had brought them to this moment. The foundation launches next month, Hayes replied. Your first year's focus will be establishing the healthcare accessibility programs Catherine outlined. As for Joey's care, the company's executive medical plan covers you both now. The best specialists, no concerns about cost or access. He paused, seeming to choose his next words carefully. As for the rest, that depends partly on you. The guest house is yours for as long as you need it. Tyler has already asked if Joey can come over forever, which I think translates to a standing playdate invitation. Natalie smiled, watching their sons, because that's how she had begun to think of them. 2 boys with similar losses finding connection. And what about us? This isn't exactly a conventional professional relationship anymore. Hayes turned to face her directly. No, it's not, and I'm not entirely sure what it is becoming. But I'd like to find out if you're willing. The honesty in his expression touched something in Natalie that had been dormant since her husband's death years ago. I think I am, she said softly, though we should probably take it slowly. For the boy's sake. Hayes nodded, understanding in his eyes. Of course. We have time. Inside, Tyler had apparently taught Joey a new card trick, and the younger boy's delighted laughter floated through the open window. Hayes smiled at the sound. Catherine always said that wealth was meaningless unless it created joy. I think she'd approve of this particular investment. Natalie thought of the black card that had changed everything, of choices made and paths revealed. Some investments pay dividends you never expect, she agreed, raising her glass in a quiet toast to new beginnings. 6 months later, the Catherine Bell Foundation had already funded healthcare initiatives in 3 states, created educational support programs for children with chronic illnesses, and established a research grant for developing accessible medical technologies. Natalie had moved from the guest house to a comfortable home nearby, where Joey thrived with proper medical care and the friendship of Tyler, who had become like a brother to him. And if Hayes spent more evenings at their dinner table than at his own, if professional lines blurred into personal connection, if 2 broken families gradually found healing together, well, that was a dividend no financial statement could possibly capture. The black card experiment had ended, but its true value was only beginning to be revealed, in second chances, in found family, in the quiet miracle of hearts opening to possibility once more.